Good morning. Couldn't be more excited to share with you some more tips about creating profitability in your business. For those of you that don't know my background, I shared a little bit about it yesterday. I've had the pleasure of working in the flooring industry for quite a while. This is my 28th year serving in the industry, the last 17 of which I've had the pleasure of working directly with independent flooring stores and trying to help them scale businesses through better merchandising. In 2008 was my first project where I was lead design. Working with Christian Davies, we created a showroom for another brand. And in 2008, we were fortunate enough to be awarded the Retail Design of the Year award by Retail Magazine. We weren't competing against just flooring stores, it was the entire retail industry. We beat out Bloomingdale's and Macy's for new concepts and how to path the consumer better to product. Since then, I've had the luxury of designing close to 200 retail showrooms. And today I want to share with you some of the things that we've learned along the way. With this, I'm going to ask you to not have thin skin. I'm going to show you some things that you probably don't want to hear and you definitely don't want to see. But I have one simple goal. Let's share some truth because through that process, it'll create more profit. First topic we're going to talk about is kind of what is merchandising and our ultimate goals. We'll spend just a few minutes talking about space planning. We're going to jump then into a little more macro content on the functionality of displays and sampling and some strategies there on how you lay out your showrooms. And finally, signage. How you actually use signs in retail to engage consumers in different ways. And for those of you that want a better view of the screen, because a lot of this content will be on screen, go ahead, move over. We've got tons of seats over here, so you're not having to scooch over. Please, make it easy for you. We got time. And then, of course, at the end of it, as long as we have some enough time, we'll be doing some Q&A at the end. So if you have questions as we go through, my ask is just make a note of it. When we get to the time for Q&A, we'll certainly hit that as well. But let's begin. So if I hit the right button, what in the world is this thing called merchandising? I've been trying to explain that to friends and family for a lot of years. The ultimate goal around merchandising is the connectivity between the consumer and product. But the piece most people miss in this equation is that how retailers and suppliers attempt to connect consumers to product for profit. Profit is not about sales. Growing sales doesn't mean you're more profitable. And this is a big distinction for most business owners. There are business owners here that have $2 million businesses that didn't make a penny in profit because they didn't set their business up the right way. And there's $1 million stores here that are rolling in dough because they did. If your goal is to drive just top-line sales, go find another class today, folks, because I want to talk about getting profit out of your business. A lot of the concepts I'm going to share are around margin growth, not total sales growth. Okay? And they are in direct conflict in many cases. So, a couple interesting stats I want to share. First and foremost, yesterday you heard us talk about the 30%. We know from recent research that we've done with more than 1,000 consumers who are homeowners shopping for flooring, that 30% of consumers in market have zero plans of walking into a showroom to make their purchase. 30%. 10 years ago, that number was 12%. As we look at the changing consumer, these magical millennials that have now decided, I'm getting the hell out of mom and dad's house, I'm buying a nice house in the suburbs, or they're going from the small apartment that they had out to the nice McMansion because they've made money and they're investing in it in property. Today, that younger group of consumers, that 30 to 40-year-old group, represents half of all dollars being spent in home improvement. Half. Within 5 years, it will be nearly 70%. So we need to stop thinking about how we've done business before. If all of your customers have blue hair and come in at lunchtime because they can, they're retired, you're not thinking about that next generation of consumer that you're going to have to focus on to drive your business. It's the younger homeowner who's spending money, period. And they don't plan on walking in retail, a third of them. As we look at that consumer base changing, that's going to be 50% fast. So this is not about saying, guys, you got to use technology. Almost everybody here uses FloorForce, and that's a really good thing. But how you take the consumer from that digital experience and path them into store has to be thought about differently. 90%. Hi, my name's Neil, and I'm a floor geek. I told you that yesterday, but I was also a flooring salesman for a lot of years. How many, showing of hands, how many people here like talking to salespeople? Not in the coaching capacity, but just really like talking to salespeople. Well, your customers don't either. 90% of consumers never want to talk to a salesperson. So the question is, what are the two things that we do in our showroom planning and merchandising that can help them have their wish? This is a product that they don't know what's right for them. It's a product that they don't know. Heck, we see it every day. Is that a laminate or an engineered wood? They don't know. And they sure don't know that their 100-pound Rottweiler probably shouldn't be walking around on $3 hardwood. So how do we make it easier for the consumer? It's got to be part of your plan. Because they don't want to talk to a salesperson. The lack of confidence in the salesperson doing the right thing for them is pretty low. If we look at how the younger generation is leveraging technology to avoid a conversation with a live human being, think about how you could potentially leverage technology there. Now with Podium, that's a brilliant one because it allows that consumer to text. Today, 85% of all consumers prefer text messaging to a phone call. If we continue to force the customers to do business the way we've done it over the last 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to lose them. So we have to think about how do we engage consumers without it being a conversation with a salesperson. And the last thought around that one I want to share is the most awkward place you could ever put a customer is across the desk from a salesperson. If you have sales desks on your sales floor, and that's where they're sitting down with the customer to do their paperwork, it is the most uncomfortable space you could ever put a customer in your store. So why are you doing it? They need a desk, they need a place to work. But get that off your retail floor. They need a space where they can sit down that's a neutral space to have the conversation. Whether it's signing on a tablet or old school paper, that should never, ever be done at a desk. Create a workspace for your consumers that is neutral, because the person behind the desk is the person with all the power and control. We need to transfer that to the consumer. The last reason for change, 100%. Now, some people are going to chuckle at this one. I'm going to add a little caveat. 100% of your products can be purchased online, at a big box store, or directly from a manufacturer in some cases. Now, yes, I know there's certain brands that are exclusive in market. We love them. But there's lookalikes to it in every category. So why the heck would the customer go through a painful process if that's easier? Because I don't have to talk to a salesman at a big box. I don't have to talk to a salesman at an online transaction. So we have to rethink how we engage consumers in retail. A lot of it starts with how we define our space around engagement, and that's what we're going to spend our time talking about. The 3 primary objectives in merchandising is simply inspiration, ownership, and accessibility. Inspiration. I have the distinct pleasure of working with Katie Tatishi right here in the back of the room. Katie, stand up for me. That has created the inspirational images used in our retail selling system. I've spoken with dealers literally within the last 2 weeks that says, Neil, that's a complete waste of money. And I look at the person and say, hopefully the next generation that takes over the business has a customer-first mentality. Whether it's our retail selling system or you work with a local designer, if you don't have the eye for it, if you're not putting things in your store that inspire the consumer, if you're not putting things on your website, the before and after pictures of your work that inspires a consumer to action, you're missing a major opportunity. HGTV built an entire network. They make you sit through a 30-minute session just so you can see the after picture. If they showed you the before and after at the beginning, would you watch the show? Thanks, got it, next. But we're not leveraging that in our business. You do great work and you take no credit for it. Why not? Guys, you got floor plans. Put a little symbol in the corner that says, take a picture from here. Do it on your measure. Take a picture from here for the after. And go get it. When I was in retail sales, one of my mentors showed me a before and after book. And he had one for every single product category that he sold. And in that old school book, it had the before, it had the after, taken from the same angle. And on the opposite page was the customer testimonial letter that says, this was an amazing experience. And people wondered why he sold $1.2 million back in the early 90s as a salesperson when the average in the company was $300,000. He inspired customers to picture that was what they were going to go through. You do it every day, and you're not doing the work, as Jason talked about yesterday, to get the credit and build the confidence with your consumer. You're not putting the things in your showroom that shows them and proves to them they should do business with you. Change that tomorrow. It's an easy change. Ownership ties to the same kind of piece. Can I picture this in my home? There's lots of visualizers out there. We have a great one. But if it's not ours, use one. Because your customer can't picture this little chip in their entire house. And with the trends in design going more and more after high contrast and bold, big patterns, why are we not showing things with what it can look like large scale? And the only way I know of doing it is visualizers. Okay? Be careful in how you leverage visualizers. Just a tip. Make the investments to get it on your website. Again, all FloorForce has that opportunity with the FloorForce Premium. We're getting more and more manufacturers to support that technology through the digital imaging aggressively because we know it makes a huge difference in conversion rates for leads and in store for conversion for sales. You've got to use one. The tip here is don't keep sending the customers to a manufacturer's website where they will see everybody else up and down the street that sells that same product. Pull it up on your site, take an image, capture a screen share or snap, and send that to the customer. You can tell the customer on the phone, send me a picture. Go do the work, send them without a link. Because all you're doing is helping your competition sell the same product. Accessibility. When we look at how consumers shop, if you sat through Katie and I's presentation yesterday, we talked about there's 4 ways consumers think about any purchase. And it's not how we sample our stores. The 4 ways customers think about making any purchase, and it doesn't matter what you're buying. If you're buying a new pair of jeans or your next car, there's one of 4 things that's going to make you buy that product. You're buying it because it's the performance that you want or need. It is the value proposition if you're looking for something affordable. It is the design that you want as far as the aesthetics or functionality, or you're treating yourself to a little piece of luxury. Those four things are what makes customers buy. That's how we build our retail selling system. I'm not here to pitch you on that, but I want you to think about understanding what the customers are looking for. Stop asking your customers, do you want laminate, hardwood, tile? They don't know. Instead, start thinking about how you can organize your showrooms that define those four needs. We talk about a platform. Write those four names down and mark your showroom with it. Our system's really good, but you can do it tomorrow. Go home and print this stuff out on 4 different pieces of color of paper if you have to, and stick it on your display. Because the messaging from manufacturers are as clear as mud. They're shown 8 different kinds of vanilla with no solution as to which one's best. One gives a rating system that's completely different than another. It's confusing as hell. So simplify it with one of 4 pieces, and it starts with something as simple as, what is it about your existing flooring that makes you want to replace it? If you ask your customer, what is it about your existing flooring that makes you want to replace it, they'll tell you. Oh, I hate the color. They might be design-centric. Well, we just bought a new house and our budget's shot, but I can't think of my newborn crawling around on somebody else's old carpet. They might be value. Ask questions not about product, but what they're trying to achieve, and then steer them to the right solution and make it simple where you can. This has to be in our whole overall strategy. The last one down there, website, chat, and text. We talked about that serving the needs of the consumer first. I hate text. Sorry, I do. I'm old, but you have to. Showroom safety. If you have a consumer that cannot walk through your showroom safely because there's stuff leaned up against everything, change it. If that customer has a stroller with a child in it and they're worried about something whacking them, change it. If your aisles are so narrow they can't turn the stroller around, change it. You need 42 inches between your displays at a minimum. I've been in most of your, I shouldn't say most of your stores, I've been in a few of your stores, and I'm lucky to fit down the aisle, okay? So it's not about extras, it's about open and spacious. Store hours. If you're open 10 to 5, Monday through Friday, you are not accessible to when your customers shop, period. If you are not open one night or a weekend day, even if it's a short day, you are not accessible to your customers. I work long hours. You do too. Think about if you had to go shop for flooring, are you taking time off in the middle of the day? Most of the people we serve aren't independent business owners that can do that. Whether they're remote or actually back into the workplace, they're working during the time we are, then that 9 to 5 or 10 to 5 or whatever crazy hours that were set. So if you don't give them an option for an evening or a weekend to come to you, the only option you're giving them is the big box. By appointment only means pain in the ass. It's convenient for you, it's not convenient for them. And we need to rethink how we become accessible to consumers if we're truly looking to serve customers and create a bigger net to pull in business. To the showroom. I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures of this one showroom for an example of what good looks like. This was done with a professional interior designer. The company that created this design is spectacular. It doesn't have to look like this to be good. But I want to use this as an example of what good looks like. The single biggest impact you can do to a showroom to take it from awful to at least good is lighting. The number one biggest factor in your customer liking your products versus your competition. What kind of lighting do they have in the home centers? We can beat that. Okay? That one's easy. It's not cheap, but it's easy to execute on. If you have old fluorescent bulbs that have been up there for 5 years and your time to replace it is when they finally burn out, you have the wrong lighting plan. They actually have diminished lighting after a year that's significant. So you need to, if you have fluorescents, replace them every year. And they need to be white bulbs. Okay, that doesn't cost a lot of money to have a big impact in your showroom. Get rid of the old bulbs, put in some new ones, make sure they're white. $65K. If you're able to invest in specific task lighting for your displays, even better. Prices have come down so much, anybody can afford great lighting today. You just need to think about how you push that up 10x for your consumer. If you have to squint, so does your customer. Second, beautiful flooring. One of the biggest inspirations customers can get is physically standing on the floor that they want to buy. If you have commercial flooring, commercial carpet in your showroom, yank it out and put in residential. It's cheap, it's convenient, it's super durable, it's wicked practical, it's really ugly. And it doesn't inspire a consumer to want to put it in their home. From a budget standpoint, when you're ready to replace it, put in what you want to sell, not necessarily what's the least or most affordable or what the vendor is going to give you for free. Okay? Yeah, I'll give you a couple hundred feet of this. Sure they will, because when you put it on the floor, you actually sell it more. 28% growth is the expectation with a feature product on a retail floor. 28% more. So what do you have that not everybody else in town has? Put it on your floor. What are you going to put on your floor that maximizes your profit? Put it on your floor. And do a nice job of it. We as flooring professionals, when I walk into a showroom and they have all these T-moldings, separating stuff all over their floor, I cringe. As flooring professionals, we have the ability to transition flooring heights and things in ways that don't look like that. So it represents you, it represents your brand, but it represents a profit opportunity to help your customer visualize and want to buy it. So put down what's going to make you the most profit, that's going to be the least shopped to grow profits. Focus on a small product count. Nicole yesterday with Omnify talked about how she scaled down the number of selections. And her sales went up, her close rates went up. Guys, I've done a lot of showrooms. Most of them we take out 70% or more of the SKUs. And when the customer comes in, they say they've got more product options than before. Because by being able to create open lines of sight to product, creating a smaller focal point for the consumer, we absorb information in different ways. When we throw too much clutter at the customer visually, it actually blocks the customer's thought process, and then they tune out. So keeping small focal points that are easy to digest keeps our attention. And by the way, the average attention span is 8 seconds. You have 8 seconds to catch the customer's eye. If you're putting 200 options in front of them, you lost for focal points. Previously, I mentioned about the neutral workstations. People are comfortable around the kitchen table. When friends and family come over, that's where we gather. It's not in some formal office space, right? Give them a neutral space to work with. I've belabored that one enough. Experiential changes the game. We had a customer who's 91 years old that drove 2 hours. Now that in itself is crazy to think a customer would drive 2 hours to any store. But the reason she did is because of the in-store visualizer and the giant kiosk. I'm not here to sell you kiosks, guys. But figure out how you can use a visualizer as part of your brand story, whether it's taking somebody's visualizer and putting it up on screen with a computer. You can do that. It's not as good as our touch screens. But if you're not getting the consumer to actually participate in the action, if you're pushing stuff in front of the consumer and we're not getting them engaged in the process, it doesn't stick in memory. There's multiple ways we absorb information and learn as adults, and one of those 4 ways is the physical act of engagement. Technology engagement's a way, putting the sample in the customer's hands is an obvious, simple way for engagement. But think about how you can constantly stimulate the senses. We make buying decisions in the limbic portion of our brain. The limbic portion of our brain is driven by our 5 senses. The smartest business owner I ever saw that created experiential opportunities, he had an Otis Spunkmeyer chocolate chip cookie baker in the back of his store and a little coffee station. So when you walked into a store, I smelled chocolate chip cookies and coffee. And I'm like, ooh, that smells good. Okay? He had a giant kiosk set up with a touch screen. And he said, let's take a look. And he had me touching the screen. And then when we got over to product, he put the product in my hand and he showed me the action that he wanted me to replicate, the touching and engaging of product. We buy things through emotional connection to product, not practicality. We buy things because our emotions tell us, let's do it. That's our senses. So think about every single sense, whether it's the noise in the background, is it positive or is it a distraction? Think about how we create those experiential opportunities in every piece of our showroom to make the customer say yes, instead of creating distraction. If the phone's ringing and people are buzzing around the place like it's a madhouse, it's not the quiet, comfort, engagement space that we need for our customers. It's the aggregate of all these different things that create a great showroom. Start with one. Start with lighting. Look at your space. Second, get rid of 70% of the stuff in your showroom that you never sell to bring the customer's eye down to that focal point that she can actually allow her view to rest. The rest, get them as you can, because they'll make a huge difference for you. I've shown you the good, now let's have some fun. The bad. Yes, this is a store that is bad. Bad lighting, overwhelming selection, samples that are inaccessible because these stacker displays, hey, I'll give you free samples, sure. Free display too, all good, that was worth $12, and everybody up and down the street has the same one. We as business owners have a great fear of loss. What if the customer comes in and asks for it? I've got to have it. It's kind of like, what if you train your people and they leave? Well, what if you train them or don't train them and they stay? We have to think about things differently when it comes to merchandising. If that looks like your showroom, folks, you're creating an overwhelming experience for your consumer that doesn't allow them to create focus and comfortably path to yes. If that's yours, oh, we got to talk. I'm coming out and visiting you. Because not only is it not safe, but, well, I just don't even have to go there. I've been there, I've seen it. I think we need our own flooring dealer rehab show on HGTV that could help something like this. But look, you don't have to have big and fancy to have good. If you get to good, you're better than the home center experience. If you get to good, you're better than the lumber liquidators experience. If you get to good, you can earn some business, but that ain't it. It doesn't have any inspiration. It doesn't give the consumer any ability to take ownership and see it in their home. Certainly not accessible in more ways than one. Space planning. This one will go quick, I promise. We talked about this a bit. Less options increase sales. Not more. Look at what you sell. If you haven't sold it in the last year, make a change. I would tell you if you probably haven't sold it in the last 6 months, make a change. Go to your competition and understand what are they promoting to your customers. Coach this morning was talking about he had 6 days to prepare for that 7th day game. We're all busy, successful business owners. You wouldn't be here if you're not. But don't forget what got you to that place of success. You went to your competition. They might know you now. Wear glasses. Take your company shirt off. I forgot that a couple times. But go see what they're promoting to their customers. If you go in and their salesperson saying, this is the best thing for you, you got two choices. Show them Me Too and get into a price war, or show them something different. Call out the stuff that you're just not selling and call out the stuff that's everywhere on Main Street. We know, the research is very obvious, that you can grow sales 5 to 10 times higher with the same amount of work with less options. But the fear of loss and free fills showrooms in a bad way. Make the change. Keep the entry area open. Everybody's got that one vendor rep that's not so good. Put their stuff at the front door, because you're never going to sell it. Anything within 8 feet of your front door is the least comfortable space in a physical showroom for the customer to spend their time. From the time we're little kids, our moms whacked us if we got too close to the front door. Didn't want us running out in the street. Anything within 8 feet of your front door is going to be your lowest selling item. So keep it open. Sight lines. We've all pretty much seen this 100 times. In the middle of your showroom, keep the display short, not pathways that they can't see through. Your tall displays go on the outside walls. But Neil, I've got all these displays that are tall, and I only have so much wall space. Exactly, get rid of them. Put stuff in the middle that the customer can see over, because once they can actually get line of sight, they can self-direct. If they can't see what they're looking for, they turn around and they walk out. Pathing the consumer through your space. We can't be IKEA, most of us, in how we do our space planning, but we should have purposeful thought as to how we look at the consumer's experience through our store. What are you trying to engage for the consumer? Are you trying to get the consumer engaged in your market that's a high-end market with luxury products? Great. Where do they put the number one selling item in the grocery store? Milk. It's in the back of the store, right? Because once you get the customer that far back in, it takes time for them to walk back out, and you got more chances to sell them. So think about what you're representing for your consumer. What you want to sell the most of, plan it in the back of your store and path them to it so they have to walk past everything to get there. If you're selling nothing but tile, put it in the back so they have to walk past carpet, wood. How many times have you had customers say, oh, you sell hardwood too? Yeah, you walked right past it in the store, but these are the things that matter when you're thinking about your space planning. The second thing when you're thinking about pathing the consumer to consider is signage, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. If you don't have big, bold signs in however you arrange your showroom, you're making it hard for your customer to understand what they're looking at. Cross-merchandise, I want to show you an example of that in just a moment. Some of your business should be coming from designers. Pay them to come in and help fix your showroom if you can't do it yourself. The ability for us to put beautiful carpet, area rugs with hardwood. We know everybody wants the hardwood visuals. Why aren't we capturing both? Because we put them at opposite ends of our store. They should be layered together so the customer can start coordinating everything together in that space. So whether it's through photography, great before and after pictures that show it as part of the design, make sure that we're showing the opportunities for other product options that they can buy from you besides just the primary focal point. If we leverage all the different pieces that allow us to create that great experience, we buy more than we anticipated in buying. IKEA is, again, the perfect example. The consumer typically buys 3 times more products than what they originally came in to buy because they create that connection and cross-merchandising and pathing that makes it work. Private label everything. If your customer can Google it, they will find it somewhere else. Create your own little labels if you have to. Have a spreadsheet in the back where you can cross-reference it before you sell it. It's a pain in the butt to do it, but I'd rather you have that than somebody Googling it and finding it elsewhere. Yep, back one, please. Display functionality. When you think about displays, I said all those samples were inaccessible. Stacker displays are the worst display ever made for flooring, especially for tile grouted boards. I think about merchandising for my 5'1" wife that's 110 pounds. Could she lift that giant tile board up and over if the color she likes is on the back of it? Of course not. Of course not. Things like 70 pounds. We have to think about how we make products accessible through our display of product in the store. If it's too low, or if it's behind something that's too heavy, think about how to sample it differently. Turning the display sideways so you can pull it out simply from the side instead of trying to pull stuff up and over. Well, we couldn't do that, Neil. We actually have to take some of the displays out. See how it connects. Okay? If it's stacker to beside stacker, you're only going to sell the front one or two because they can't get the others. Okay? This one, when Shaw came out with this one, I thought it was brilliant. Big samples, not too big, readily accessible. I'm not here to promote their brand by any means. But to me, this was brilliant because it showed the Pinterest experience in store. They used photography that showed the collage. They put area rug capabilities with the hardwood because they knew if the customer was buying the hardwood, within 3 days of the time that hardwood floor hits the floor, 3 days she's buying a rug or he's buying a rug. Okay? Why not from you? Okay? Don't buy them, don't stock them, but you better get them on your website and get some photography up there to let them know that you're an option. And this isn't working though. I've belabored this one a bit. Stackers are the enemy of customer service. We've talked about these before. Sorry, my slides got jumbled up a bit. So let's get to signage. Signage in store matters. Less text, the better. Again, that 8-second attention span. If you can't tell your customer what they're looking at in 8 seconds, you've got too much text. And I am the worst person guilty of this. I write novels for emails. If that's you, get somebody else to do the writing for you. But your signage has to let the customer know very quickly what they're looking at or what you do. Whether it's your vehicles that are flying your brand with all logoed out, if you sell carpet, wood, tile, laminate, rugs, let that be your bullets. Keep it simple. When we're looking at flying brands on stores, it should be distinguishable, your logo. If you have not done a logo refresh in the last 20 years, consider it. Freshen it up, make it a little more clear for your customer, invest in a quality sign, put the wraps on your vehicles. You should be flying your brand in your market. That is how your customer identifies you. That's really important, we know that, right? But think about when your customer gets inside of your store, what are they seeing that replicates that same branding and imaging? It's crucial. Customers want to see promotions. I love this, Snoopy, fall sale, jumping in the leaves. Everybody wants to feel like they're getting a deal. Whether it's was $9.99, now $7.99. Amazon's king of it, and look at what they just did to Walmart. They passed them for biggest retailer in the country. So think about how your customers perceive your store. Are they getting a value? The only thing this doesn't work for is luxury consumers. Everybody except for luxury consumers wants to feel like they're getting some sort of a deal. So if you don't show some type of savings inside your store with signage, they're going to ask you for a discount, and that's never comfortable for either of you. So just show them a discount on a couple items. It doesn't have to be the whole store, but you have to have a couple of those options shown. If your market is pure luxury, don't do promos. It is actually a detractor to sales. But other than that, you've got to show it. Point of sale sign should be quality, go to a professional printer. Your inkjet is not that. Have them printed nicely. Get them throughout your store. And I apologize, I'm running behind real quick. I'm going to get to the big one. Pricing. I'm afraid that they're going to see the price lower somewhere else. Then you're showing the wrong stuff. You have to put pricing in your showrooms, folks. It's a pain in the butt, especially with all the price changes. But your customer expects to see prices when they shop. One of the reasons the Home Depots are growing so rapidly is because they are showing the customer what it costs on the shelf. It's not because their price is low, it's just they're transparent. If I have to go look up a price, I think you're screwing me. Well, they looked at me and said, how much can I charge? 65% of shoppers today have an expectation of seeing a price in your flooring store. The other 35% are old customers that have bought flooring lots of times and understand that that's not the norm. They're not going to be your customer in 5 years. You have to look at ways of getting pricing in your showroom stores. It matters to the shopper. If I walk into your store and you don't have pricing set up, I'm leaving and going somewhere they do. Because I want, as a consumer, that level of transparency. Okay? And I want to see a couple items that are being discounted for sales. You mark it up to mark it down if you have to, but that's how customers shop today, folks. So with that, sorry it wasn't probably the most pleasant experience, but I hope you took something out of this and how you can better engage consumers and more importantly, grow your profits. Any questions from the group that came out in the chat?
All right, so we had no questions in the app, but wanted to open up the floor. If anybody had any, I can run with the microphone to you.
Got a couple minutes left.
You stumped them, no question. Oh, perfect.
For the pricing, what do normal people do? Do they do the digital? Do they do paper? I mean, that's where we're stuck at.
Yeah.
Is
the best
how do we
way that
do
I've
it?
seen is using the Avery business cards to print for price tags. You can keep your pricing in a spreadsheet that way, easily update it in a spreadsheet and hit print. Most people aren't using electronic signs yet. I can tell you that's something we as an organization are definitely looking at in 2022 is to provide integrated technology with electronic signage in stores so it can auto-sync as price changes occur through systems. But until we get that technology out there, you got to rely on old school print. And I can show you some examples of that right after the class if you like. I'll pull it up and show you. What else you got?
We are in the process of building a new showroom. You mentioned lighting earlier.
Yep.
Not trying to pin you in a corner too much, but do you have any recommendations on good lighting?
Yeah, LED has become so cheap, it doesn't increase the temperature in the room. It actually pays for itself in HVAC costs for fluctuations in most markets. Look at LED equivalent to long track lighting. The gentleman right beside you, Chris Nogler, actually was a lighting consultant at one point. He's a bigger expert than I am. But I can tell you that LEDs make sense for at a minimum task lighting. Fluorescents are very affordable and they have a long shelf life. So what most folks do is they do a blend. They'll do fluorescents for the general ambient lighting in the space, pure white 6500 to 10,000 K for color, and then focal point lighting for your displays with LED. That's usually your best blend between cost of fixture and operating costs.
Going back one more time to the pricing, is it better to price by rack or better individual price in every single product?
It's better to have pricing than none, so whatever's going to get the job done, let's look at that. I would tell you by product type is certainly the best in consumer preference, but if you're not going to be able to do it or execute it and maintain it, a price list posted per display is better than none. Yes? Installed only or installed at material? Great question. I will tell you most stores today should not be pricing with the total installed price because your competition doesn't. If your competition is going to be talking about apples and you're talking about oranges, you're always going to seem too high with an installed price. Those that do it best, I think, would share with you that they're never going to show that installed price product to product in the showroom. Yes? When doing hard surface to soft surface, do you use square foot across the board or Yes, great question. Do you use square foot versus square yard? Always square foot, even on carpet. The reason they did square yard, believe it or not, when this industry started, is so customers couldn't figure it out themselves. It was a gouging technique for some nasty people. Make it square foot, always, and it's actually required by law today.
So you've mentioned to declutter and take away many
Yes.
items that we have. In our showroom, we have large tiles. And like you said, sometimes I have trouble, and it's embarrassing in front of a customer to pull a tile off of the rack. If we don't have the tiles on the rack, how else would you display tile? Like we
Sure.
have little cubes, but it does nothing.
It doesn't. So this is the part that most folks don't want to hear. Sometimes you have to invest in a off-the-shelf display system to make it easier for you to work with it, rather than what the manufacturer's providing. Those step-up displays, to your point, are awful. Throw those things in the dumpster and go find a display that you can get affordably that will actually create the functionality that you need if you want to keep showing that. Or use a manufacturer that provides the right display to make it accessible. Time's up, folks. Thank you so much. Anybody else has additional questions, I'll certainly take it after the class.